Listen to me carefully now. Stop what you are doing right now. This is not a normal message. This is not just another video you scroll past and forget. If you're hearing my voice at this very moment, it is not an accident. It is a divine interruption, because there are people watching me right now who are tired. Tired of working hard and still struggling. Tired of praying and seeing no financial breakthrough. Tired of watching others rise while you remain stuck in the same cycle. You have asked God, why not me? You have wondered, what am I missing? And today I am about to show you something that most believers have never been taught. There is a spiritual principle hidden in plain sight that can shift the flow of provision in your life. Not by luck, not by chance, but by alignment with what heaven has already released over you. There are 3 specific numbers, and when they are understood and activated in faith, they begin to unlock something powerful in your life, something that can change the way favor, opportunity, and provision come to you. This is not about superstition. This is not about chasing money. This is about positioning yourself under divine flow. And I need you to hear this. This could happen faster than you think. In the next 24 hours, something can begin to shift, but only if you are ready to receive it. Only if you stay with me until the end. And only if you open your spirit to what God is about to do. Because this message is not for everyone. It is for the one who is ready to step out of lack and step into overflow. Listen to me carefully now. Stop what you are doing right now. I am not asking you. I'm telling you, pause for a moment, because something important is happening in this very second. Not later, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, right now. You didn't land here by accident. You didn't just randomly click this message while scrolling without purpose. There are moments in life when everything slows down for a reason. When something unseen begins to align. And if you ignore it, you might miss the very thing that was meant to shift your life. I know how easy it is to keep scrolling. One more video, one more distraction, one more delay. That's how most people live their lives. Constantly moving, constantly consuming, but never actually stopping long enough to receive what could change everything. And that is exactly why so many people stay stuck. Not because they are not capable, not because they are not working hard, but because they never pause when it matters most. They miss divine moments because they treat them like ordinary ones. But this moment is not ordinary. There is a reason your attention is being pulled right now. There is a reason something inside you is telling you to listen just a little longer. You may not be able to explain it, but you can feel it. It's that quiet pull, that inner nudge that says, wait, don't skip this. That feeling is not random. That is the moment where something begins to open, where answers start to come, where direction begins to form, where what was hidden starts to become clear. And I need you to understand something very clearly. Life-changing moments rarely look dramatic at first. They don't come with loud announcements or flashing lights. Most of the time they come quietly, almost unnoticed, disguised as something simple, like a voice, like a message, like a moment where you decide to stop and actually listen. Right now, you are standing in one of those moments. The problem is, most people will still ignore it. They will hear these words, feel something for a second, and then go right back to their routine, back to the same thoughts, the same habits, the same patterns that have kept them stuck for years. And nothing changes. Not because change wasn't available, but because they didn't respond when the opportunity appeared. But you are still here. And that matters, because the difference between people who remain stuck and those who experience breakthrough is often just one decision. The decision to stop, to listen, and to take a moment seriously when it presents itself. So I need your full attention right now. not half listening while you do something else, not distracted, not divided. Give me these few moments with complete focus, because what you do with this moment can determine what happens next in your life. You have spent enough time rushing, enough time worrying, enough time trying to figure everything out on your own. Just for a moment, be still. Let the noise settle. Let the pressure ease and allow yourself to actually receive, because something is shifting. And it starts the moment you decide not to scroll away. I want you to be honest with yourself for a moment. Not with anyone else, just with yourself. How many nights have you gone to bed with a heavy mind, wondering why things are still not changing for you? How many mornings have you woken up, looked at your situation, and felt that same quiet frustration building inside you again? You work, you try, you push forward, yet somehow it feels like you are walking in circles. Like no matter how much effort you put in, the outcome never truly reflects your struggle. And I know you don't talk about it much. Most people don't, because on the outside you have to appear strong. You still show up, you still smile, you still handle responsibilities. But inside there are questions you don't always say out loud. Questions like, why is this so hard for me? Why does it feel like others are moving ahead while I'm still trying to catch up? What am I missing that they seem to have found? And that feeling, that quiet frustration, it slowly becomes normal. You adjust to it. You start calling it life, but deep down you know you were not created just to survive each day with pressure on your chest and uncertainty in your mind. There is something inside you that refuses to accept that this is all there is. But the struggle is real. I understand that when bills don't wait, when responsibilities don't pause, when expectations keep increasing while your resources feel limited, it can feel like life is constantly testing your strength without giving you a break. And after a while, even strong people start to feel tired. Not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, internally. And that is the part most people never see. They see your effort, but not your exhaustion. They see your progress, but not your pressure. They see you moving, but they don't feel the weight you are carrying while you move. There are people listening right now who are silently carrying burdens they never speak about. Financial pressure that they try to hide. Delayed dreams they don't talk about anymore because it hurts too much to bring them up. Plans they once believed in now sitting quietly in the background of their lives, almost forgotten, but not fully gone. And I want you to know something very important. You are not alone in this. Even though it feels personal, even though it feels like you are the only one going through it, there are countless people experiencing the same silent struggle. Different faces, same battles. Different lives, same pressure. But here is what changes everything. The struggle is not always a sign of defeat. Sometimes it is a sign that something deeper is trying to develop within you. Because people who are called to more often go through seasons where things feel tighter, harder, slower than expected. Not because they are being punished, but because they are being shaped. Still, I know that doesn't make the waiting easier. When you are in the middle of it, you don't always want a lesson. You want a breakthrough. You don't want explanation. You want relief. You want movement. You want to see things finally shift in a way that makes sense. And that is why this message is reaching you now. Because this moment is not just about acknowledging the struggle. It is about recognizing that your current situation is not your final destination. What you are experiencing right now is not the end of your story. Even if it feels like a long chapter, there is more ahead for you than what you are currently seeing. And now I want you to listen even more carefully, because this is the part most people either misunderstand or completely overlook. What I'm about to say is not about religion, not about superstition, and not about chasing something imaginary. It's about understanding a deeper principle of life that most people never stop long enough to recognize. There is a reality beyond what you can immediately see, not in a mystical or unrealistic sense, but in the way your mindset, your focus, your beliefs, and your internal alignment shape the way you experience opportunities in life. Some people call it luck, some call it timing, some call it coincidence. But if you look closely enough, you begin to realize that the same life circumstances can produce completely different outcomes for different people. Two people can start from the same place, same city, same background, sometimes even the same struggles. Yet, one slowly begins to rise, while the other feels stuck in the same cycle. And the difference is not always visible on the surface. It is not always about intelligence or effort or even talent. Many times, it is about something far more subtle, something internal, something most people never consciously develop. It is the ability to align yourself with opportunity instead of constantly resisting it without realizing. It is the ability to recognize doors when they appear instead of dismissing them because they don't look the way you expected. It is the ability to stay open, aware, and receptive, even in seasons where nothing seems to be changing externally. And this is where many people struggle without knowing it. They become so focused on what is missing that they lose awareness of what is still possible. They become so emotionally tied to what hasn't worked that they fail to notice what is quietly trying to shift in their direction. Life is always communicating, but stress, fear, and frustration often make it harder to hear those signals clearly. There is something powerful that happens when a person shifts from resistance to awareness, from desperation to clarity, from confusion to quiet expectation. It does not mean everything changes instantly on the outside, but something begins to change within them first. And that internal shift often becomes the foundation for external change later. That is why timing plays such a huge role in everything. Not just external timing, but internal readiness. Because sometimes opportunities don't appear when you want them to, but when you are finally in a position to recognize and handle them correctly. And when you are not aligned internally, even good opportunities can pass by unnoticed. Think about it. How many times have people said, "I didn't see it at the time," or "I didn't realize what I had until it was gone"? That is not just regret. That is awareness arriving too late. And it happens more often than most people admit. But here is the deeper truth. Life is not trying to hide things from you. It is often revealing things gradually in layers, in ways that require attention, patience, and internal stability. And when someone is constantly overwhelmed by struggle, they lose the ability to interpret those subtle shifts. That is why the inner state matters so much. Because when your mind is constantly filled with worry, it becomes difficult to sense direction. When your heart is heavy with frustration, it becomes difficult to recognize possibility. And when your focus is only on what is wrong, you unintentionally block yourself from noticing what could be right around the corner. This is not about pretending everything is perfect. It is about becoming aware enough to see beyond the pressure. It is about training yourself to notice movement, even when it is small, because small shifts are often the beginning of major changes. There are moments in life where things begin to open quietly, not loudly, not dramatically, just subtle changes in thoughts, unexpected conversations, new ideas, sudden clarity, or even a feeling that something is about to shift. Many people ignore these moments because they don't look significant enough, but later they realize those were the exact turning points they were waiting for. And that is why this understanding matters. Because once you realize that life is not random chaos, but a series of unfolding moments that require awareness, you begin to live differently. You stop overlooking things. You stop dismissing possibilities too quickly. You start paying attention in a deeper way. Not everything is meant to be forced. Some things are meant to be recognized. And now I want to slow this down for a moment, because what I'm about to share with you is where everything starts to shift. Up until now, you may have been listening with curiosity, maybe even with a bit of emotion, but this part requires something deeper from you. It requires you to sit with it, not rush past it, not analyze it too quickly, but actually allow it to settle inside you. Because there is a gap between hearing something and actually receiving it. Most people hear information every day. They scroll through videos, they listen to messages, they consume ideas constantly, but very little of it actually stays with them. It passes through the mind, but never reaches the place where transformation begins. And that is why so many people remain unchanged, even after hearing powerful things over and over again. But this moment is different, only if you allow it to be. What I'm about to share is not just about understanding something mentally. It is about creating space within yourself where change can actually begin. And that space only opens when you slow down internally. Even if life around you is still moving fast, you have to understand something very important. Real change does not usually begin with action. It begins with awareness, with recognition, with a moment where something inside you quietly says, I need to see this differently. And that moment is powerful, because once you see something differently, you can never fully unsee it again. That is why certain ideas feel like they stay with you long after you hear them. It is not because they were loud or dramatic, but because they touched something within you that was already waiting for clarity. Now, there is something I need you to consider right now. Your life is not just shaped by what you are doing physically. It is also shaped by what you are carrying mentally. The thoughts you repeat to yourself when no one else is listening, the expectations you silently hold, the fears you don't always express, the doubts you try to ignore but still feel in the background. All of these internal patterns are quietly influencing how you respond to life, how you make decisions, and how you interpret what happens to you. And most people never stop long enough to notice this. They are too focused on external solutions, more work, more effort, more stress, more trying. But they rarely pause to ask whether something inside them needs to shift first. Because sometimes the blockage is not outside of you. It is the way you are internally processing what is already in front of you. This is where awareness becomes powerful. When you begin to notice your internal reactions instead of just reacting automatically. When you start to observe your thoughts instead of being controlled by them. When you begin to create a small space between what happens and how you respond. In that space, something changes. You start realizing that not every thought deserves your attention. Not every fear deserves your belief. Not every delay means denial. And not every closed door means the end of possibility. But without awareness, everything feels immediate and absolute. A delay feels like rejection. A challenge feels like failure. A quiet season feels like nothing is happening at all. And that perception alone can drain your energy before anything even changes externally. That is why awareness is not just a concept. It is a shift in how you experience your own life. And here is something else you need to understand. When you begin to operate from awareness instead of reaction, you naturally start to make better decisions. Not because everything becomes easier, but because you are no longer overwhelmed by every moment. You begin to see patterns instead of isolated problems. You begin to notice direction instead of just confusion. And slowly your mindset stops being purely emotional and starts becoming more observant, more grounded, more steady. This is not about pretending everything is fine. It is about becoming conscious enough to not let every situation control your inner world. Because when your inner world becomes more stable, your outer decisions become clearer. And when your decisions become clearer, your path naturally starts to shift in ways you did not notice before. You stop forcing everything. You stop chasing every direction. You stop reacting to every setback as if it defines you. And instead, you begin to move with a different kind of clarity, a quieter kind of confidence that is not shaken by every small change around you. And this shift, even though it feels small at first, becomes the foundation for everything that follows. Now, I want you to stay with me until the very end of this, because this is where everything comes together. Not in a loud moment, not in a dramatic shift, but in a quiet realization that most people overlook because they are always looking for something bigger, something faster, something more obvious. But life does not always change in loud ways. Sometimes it changes in a way that is so subtle, you only recognize it after everything has already begun to move differently. You may not feel it immediately. In fact, most real shifts do not announce themselves at the moment they begin. They start quietly, almost invisibly, like something adjusting inside you that you cannot fully explain yet. A thought feels a little different. A reaction feels a little calmer. A worry that once consumed you doesn't hit you with the same intensity. And you might not even realize it at first, but something is beginning to loosen. And that is important for you to understand, because most people expect change to feel dramatic right away. They expect signs, proof, instant transformation. But what actually happens first is internal alignment. Something inside you starts to settle. Something begins to make more sense. Something that once felt heavy starts to feel just slightly more manageable. And in that subtle shift, your entire direction begins to adjust. You have to understand, your life does not change in one sudden moment of magic. It changes through a series of internal adjustments that eventually reflect on the outside. And when you begin to recognize those adjustments, even in their smallest form, you stop dismissing the process you are in. You start respecting it. You start becoming more aware of how things are unfolding, rather than forcing them to happen instantly. Because what is coming next for you is not something that needs to be chased in panic or desperation. It is something that needs to be recognized with clarity. And recognition only becomes possible when your mind is no longer clouded by constant pressure and expectation. There is a version of you that already exists beyond the confusion you feel right now. A version of you that is not reacting to every setback with fear, but responding with understanding. A version of you that does not break every time something doesn't work out, but instead adjusts and continues forward with quiet strength. And the purpose of everything you are going through right now is not to destroy you, but to slowly shape you into that version.